Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, members of the listening public. Good afternoon to the media. Good afternoon to the representatives of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Force. We would want to reconvene our meeting of the Joint Select Committee on National Security, and we would want to welcome the viewing and listening audience. This meeting is being broadcast live on the Parliament's Channel 11 and Radio 105.5 FM and the Parliament's YouTube channel. The guidelines for this meeting, I would want to remind both the committee members and officials to direct your questions and concerns through the chair. I would want to remind our members and, of course, the participants to kindly activate your microphones when you are recognized by the chair and turn it off when you are finished speaking. I now want to welcome the officials from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the DCP Intelligence and Investigations, Acting DCP Mr. Kurt Simon, the ACP Criminal Division, Mr. Winston Maraj, and the Senior Superintendent, Mr. Kerwin Francis. Welcome to this meeting. I want to introduce myself. I'm Keith Scotland, the chairman of this committee, and the support team includes Mrs. Jackie Sampson Miguel, the clerk of the House of Representatives, the Assistant Secretary, Mr. Brian Caesar, the Clerk of the Senate, our Graduate Research Assistant, Ms. Crystal Gittins, Graduate Research Assistant, Mr. Chad Salandi, our Legal Officer, Mr. Roger Hector, Hansard, our members from the communication teams, and IT. I will now, of course, call upon my fellow members to introduce themselves, starting with the Deputy Chair.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon to colleagues in the media. Paul Richards, Vice Chair.
Good afternoon. I am Randall Mitchell, member.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Ayana Webster Roy, member.
Good afternoon, Rudal Monilal, member.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jayanti Lachmidial, member.
I will now thank you very much. I would ask now the officials to introduce themselves, beginning with the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Kurt Simon.
Good afternoon all. Kurt Simon, Acting Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of investigations and intelligence.
Yes. Good afternoon all. Winston Maharaj, Assistant Commissioner of Police acting in charge of Criminal Division.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Kerwin Francis, Senior Superintendent in charge of the Northern Division North.
Now, initially, we had invited the Commissioner of Police designate, Mrs. Erla Christopher, and we received correspondence yesterday afternoon after having received an initial confirmation that issues that are urgent and critical to national security required the Commissioner designate's urgent attention, and she was unable to attend this afternoon. Is that so, members, officials?
Your description is correct, sir.
That being said, the committee wanted to hear from the Commissioner designate. The committee has set its work out on that pathway, having sent out the invitation, and the committee wants to convey the critical significance of the Commissioner of Police designate attending before us on the next occasion. We cannot underestimate or understate the crucial significance of that personal attendance, not just for the committee, but for the country at large. I think Member Lachmidial was so pressed that she wanted to add something, so I'll just give her an opportunity so to do.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, a letter written by Dr. Munilal and myself would have prompted the invitation today to the Commissioner-designate to come before the committee and answer some questions. So through you, I just want to express my disappointment in coming here at 1:30 and being informed that the Commissioner had other matters to attend to, albeit matters of national security, which I understand may at times take precedence. But, Mr. Chair, you know, the Commissioner-designate has been acting as the Commissioner for some time, has been a member of the TTPS executive for some time, and therefore must be aware of the importance of these committee meetings. And these committees, it's the mechanism through which the people's representatives in the Parliament really get an opportunity to interrogate state functionaries. And at a time when we have a record-breaking murder rate last year, we have a record-breaking, I think, murder rate in the month of January. And what prompted our request for a meeting today is, in fact, a series of reports of TTPS paraphernalia or imitation paraphernalia, as well as other arms of law enforcement, marked ammunition being found on crime scenes. The issues we propose to interrogate today are not general matters of national security, but deal directly with the internal operations of the TTPS. And so, coming on the heels of a unanimous approval in the House of Representatives, I'm really a bit disappointed that the Commissioner-designate would decline our unanimous invitation to attend the meeting today. That being said, I have all trust and confidence that the gentlemen present will endeavor to assist the best that they could, and I am certain that they are quite competent to do so. But I would simply ask that we must bear in mind that the buck stops with the head of an organization, and so that they would convey the committee's sentiments as it relates to this matter, please.
Senator Mitchell, you want to say something?
Yeah, just to say that I understand, too, the importance of this particular meeting, having been prompted by Senator Lachmidial and Member Munilal. I myself, Mr. Chairman, struggled to come here today, and I'd imagine that while we are experiencing some difficulty, we are also in a period where a lot of planning, strategic planning, execution must be done by the police, because we expect a lot of visitors and a lot of activity during the Carnival period. And I think while I'm very confident that the officers before us will be able to assist this committee, I think it entirely reasonable that the head of an organization, understanding that the buck stops with that head, would be engaged in the pressing matter of planning for the execution of Carnival 2023 this year. Thank you.
What we'd want to say, and putting an end to this in this aspect of it, is that you understand the critical importance of the commissioner attending. We take the commissioner's word at face value, and we do wish her well, and we have already canvassed the date for our next meeting, where we would write to her to ask her to attend.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. And of course, the sentiments of the people here would be conveyed directly to the Commissioner.
Thank you.
If I may say so.
Now, we'd want to go directly now into the meat of our purpose here for this afternoon. This evidence session with the officials of the police force is to gain an understanding of the anti-crime strategies implemented by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to address criminal activity in Trinidad and Tobago. You are well aware that the issue of criminal activity has gripped not just the national attention, but international attention, and the committee found as part of its mandate that's very significant that we interrogate this issue very directly with the top brass of the police force. That being said, I would wish to invite Deputy Commissioner Kurt Simon to give a brief remark, not exceeding 2 minutes, brief opening remarks before our questioning commences.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good evening again to all members and chairpersons. Again, let me express, please, the commissioners' regret at being able to attend, but there are, in fact, other issues pressing. And I guess in these instances, the choices would have to be made as it relates to national security issues. Nonetheless, we have been mandated by the commissioner to be here, and we all did prepare to be here to face you, to face this nation, and perhaps to share somewhat the TTPS plan strategies in dealing with the pressing issues that are before the country today. Of course, our intention is really to commit, or we do commit to a secure and safe state, and a number of our strategies are in keeping with bringing that to bear some sort of fruition. We have a number of long-term goals, medium-term goals, and short-term goals. And of course, you know that the Carnival is upon us now, and that is a very pressing issue that we are dealing with right now. Even as we speak, a number of committees are meeting and so on to ensure safety in this period of Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, it's described as the mother of Carnival, and the TTPS as the mother of security in the country, sees itself significant in playing a role to keep this secure and safe state that we so enjoy in this country. We are here, Mr. Maharaj, Mr. Francis, to speak and to communicate the issues that are facing us, and perhaps share somewhat what we intend and the things that we have in store for the country in terms of safety and security. I thank you, Chair.
I'm very grateful for that introduction, and maybe as soon as I'm finished, Member Richards will begin the interrogation, but maybe I can start by asking what plans has the TTPS put in place in order to ensure the safety of not just the citizens, but the participants in the coming events in the next 2 weeks, particularly Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago. We want to share some of those with us.
Yes, Chair. So, with respect to Carnival 2023, the goal commander for our preparations for this activity is under the auspices of ACP Hazel. ACP Hazel has been meeting with a number of stakeholders who form part of that security blanket that we intend to apply not only to Port of Spain, but across all police divisions in Trinidad and Tobago. With respect to Port of Spain, a similar approach has been adopted across the other 9 police divisions, where the divisional commanders, including myself, we have developed and are implementing plans that target specific events at specific times during the season. So for example, during the Juve period, as we have all seen in the public domain, that we spread a security blanket for persons entering the Port of Spain area by way of checks at various points along the routes that bring persons into that Juve session on Juve morning. At the expiration of Juve, we also will be having police officers on the streets, because we know that we do have individuals post the Juve events who may at times be intoxicated, mingling with persons who may be coming into the Port of Spain area and other divisions to enjoy the afternoon session of Mass. Following on with that, when the afternoon session of the Parade of Bands ends, we also have transitioning of that security blanket into the night, into the expiration of the first end of day of festivities for the Carnival period. We also aware that we have Monday night mass in the St. James area, and we do have officers who will be assigned to police these events, not only in Port of Spain, but across all the other 9 police divisions. We have also called out police officers who are on leave. They have been served with notices, and they have been mandated and instructed to report for duty at the police headquarters this week, and then they will be dispatched to augment the strength, not only in Port of Spain division, but across the other 9 police divisions for this Carnival period. We are also collaborating with the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force, who will augment our activities, the municipal police, as well as the traffic wardens, as well as some of the other ministries who give us logistical support during the Carnival period.
So are you to say then, and are we to expect all hands on deck and a safe Carnival 2023?
Yes, Chair, without any reservation.
Member Richards.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon again, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Just following up on that question from the Chairman before I get into the substantive questions I have. How much emphasis is being placed in the next 2 weeks because of the critical nature of this period for us as a country in showcasing ourselves to the world, hopefully in the most positive light, understanding the environment we're in with criminality? I mean, there's some grim milestones we've struck last year and in January, and I don't know that the criminals are going to just stop for Carnival. But in terms of the use of monitoring devices like technology, like CCTV cameras, like drones, to make sure that there is as much as possible, constant surveillance, not only at the venues, but on the roadways, because roads take people to parties and events, and the response time when citizens identify issues.
Yes, sir. The entire Carnival period, what we are doing is a sort of a momentous sort of step up with the security. And that's why you heard Mr. Francis say that we are calling out the police officers, and they're being called out this week so that we can start posting. This is the first time it's being done in the service in this way, where officers are being called out this early, so that we would be able to properly estimate, the strength that we are going to have to deploy. With that said and done, we have ongoing meetings with the different LEAs, law enforcement agencies, making proper use of their equipment. Drones, as you have mentioned, we are making proper use of that for this Carnival. The CCTV arrangement, right now, we are even in the act of trying to have that on board with residences and all. And we are trying to get that going even before that Carnival weekend to establish something. So that is in the making right now. We are hoping that can actually come true, so we'll get extra coverage. We have embarked on a program to ensure that our equipment is well serviced and maintained and up to date. Even yesterday, we spoke about our OCs, which is our command centers. So we have our main command center in Port of Spain, and then in the divisions, there are different command centers, and we are making sure there's proper connectivity with the divisional OCs, connecting with our main operational command center. So that is to allow for quick and proper, not only noticing things that happen, but response time. We are trying to actually gauge and measure the response time we'll be having, so that we could react to our situations that we anticipate. And we are anticipating things. Not that we are hoping for things, but we are anticipating things, so that we will be putting things in place to deal with the things that we anticipate. And so there are certain areas that tend to be somewhat troubled at different times of the Carnival. When we look at South, we know that on the area of what was called the Harris Promenade, in that vicinity there, you know that on a Juve morning you would have issues there, so that we know the time that we want to beef up presence there. In Port of Spain, we know about the main areas, the downtown areas. We know what times we want to beef up strength there to deal with any trouble situation that may come. So we are using the equipment that we have, and we are also working closely with our brothers at the SSA, who are providing that additional technological support with us, and the information sharing is very, I would describe it as very tight, so that reactions and actions can take place perhaps even before something is to happen. So I hope that answers or responds to
I'm presuming that includes the much talked about body cams.
Yes, the Commissioner of Police have mandated the officers with the body cams to use these cameras and to have them on, and we have already started a measuring process, so to speak, looking at that, at the use, and so daily that is monitored, and daily the instructions are sent out to ensure that the body cams are in fact being used.
All right, thank you. Going to the substantive question now, related to general crime. There was a recent statement attributed to, I don't know if it's specifically the commissioner designate or some senior person in the TTPS, stating, quote, what we've seen in the last year with the 600 plus murders and in January as, quote unquote, the storm before the calm. What does that mean in the context of 61 murders in January? Can you give us a reference to that statement? And if this is the storm before the calm, what, if any, is there a target reduction for the number of murders we're seeing on a monthly basis, or we have seen on a monthly basis from October leading into January 2023?
Well, so from my court experiences, I would hardly want to sit and say what would have been in someone's mind when they made a statement. I think I read this statement somewhere about the calm before the storm. And, but if I am to perceive it, I would probably say, based on the strategies that we have employed, we expect certain features to begin kicking in so that there would be reductions in the crime. Now, up to yesterday, there was a meeting where the commissioner gave certain mandates with regards to the crime figures and the reductions that we'll be working towards in terms of percentages and so on. So the divisions, and it was not given carte blanche to say, well, each division, 15%. Every division, while you get the percentage, they get the actual number that the commissioner is looking for or have mandated them to be able to manage. And we are looking really to significantly impact and reduce that criminal output, the crime output that is occurring right now in this country. And back to your question about the calm before the storm.
No, it's the storm before the calm.
The comment, no, we know it's not your comment, but the person said it's attributable, said it's the storm before the calm.
But this is no calm.
Yes, so,
we're in the storm now.
So yes, sir, and I think we would all agree that in Trinidad and Tobago, we are hard pressed. We are faced with a situation, I guess, that we have not seen before. And yes, the crime figures are exceedingly high, and the police, we recognize that we have our role to play. Our strategies, however, as I stated earlier, are long range, long term, medium term, short term. And it only goes well with what the commissioner has described to me as how she sees the police service being able to respond. She sees the service as being a service that is professional, a service that is agile. Agile meaning that we can anticipate and put together strategies in place for future, but a service that is also adaptable, that in the short term we can react to our situations. And the projects that we have in place now, and a number of them have started, you would see, we would see perhaps in terms of measurement, the end of it in terms of perhaps a year or two, and then coming down year, 6 months, 3 months, because we have given ourselves certain timelines to work with, and that's why I said we have long-term, medium-term, short-term arrangements, short-term designs to impact our situation, and we are confident, the executive is confident that we can do it, and there's an extra push, there's an extra energy coming out of our meetings, to get these things done, and we're just looking at it.
You just mentioned the issue of very articulately the issue of clearly strategy in any management situation, medium, short, long term, but it has to, in the present context where the population is, I have to say, paralyzed by the fear of crime, the population wants to see almost immediate results, particularly with the trends, the strategies bearing fruit in the trends in February from what we've seen in October, November, December 2022 into an increase in January. So we have to ask ourselves, are those strategies bearing fruit? The data doesn't seem to support that, or can you say it does? And let me just give you some data from the SSA, which you say you're collaborating closely with. Between 2019 and 2021, the indicators are there's a 38% decrease in the number of gangs, a 57% decrease in the number of gang members. Did that data hold through for 2022? Because it doesn't seem to correlate with the increase in murders. And how is that data that you're getting from the SSA or the intelligence being used to present strategies that actually reduce the crime indicators, the murders, the assaults, the robberies? Because I don't know, maybe you can present data that it is working in that regard.
Yeah, good afternoon again, member. We readily admit that our approach in the past, as is evidenced by the results that we are seeing, we have been seeing within recent times, recent years, they are not as overwhelming or comforting as we would want. We have re-strategized, and in these strategies, we have captured and are now operationalizing certain key pieces of legislation, because we know with crime and criminality, someone benefits. And so, with that in mind, we are targeting those beneficiaries. And we had a landmark ruling quite recently by the Court of Appeal, sometime at the end of January, with respect to wealth and explaining your wealth. That is something we plan to operationalize in conjunction with the Proceeds of Crime Act. We plan, and we have systems in place without wanting to say too much. The jailhouse economy, as we call it, we have systems in place that are geared towards addressing that. The larceny of motor vehicles, which is a mode, the method used by criminals to move and move with the firearms to perpetrate crime, again, to the benefit of someone. We have a system in place that is working as we speak. And to respond directly to your question, there will be some level of control, downward trend in the perpetration of crime February and moving forward. We are confident with the strategies that we have put in place. The old methods perhaps has outlived its usefulness, and we have a new paradigm, a new direction, and that's the direction that we are going.
Well, we look forward to that. Let Member Lachmidial and then Member Mitchell.
Good afternoon again. So you've mentioned that you all have targets for reductions in the number of crimes, but I'm also concerned about the detection rate as it pertains to crime, because my view of it is that it's a sort of a chicken and egg arrangement, and it's if you can raise your detection rates, it may contribute eventually to a reduction in the number of crimes. If people feel that, there's more likely that crimes are going to be detected, detection and conviction, I should say. So could you give us, for example, with respect to murder, because I think that is what is at the forefront of most citizens' minds, With respect to the murders in the last 3 years, do you have an average or an idea of the exact numbers in terms of detections, arrests that have been made in relation to those murders? And then you can go on to tell us a little bit about specific activities or perhaps what you may require as an organization in order to improve the detection rate, because we hear a lot about the detection rates being somewhat low and the conviction rate being even lower. And if you listen to me at all, which I hope you do, I am one person who I've been very firm in my conviction that new methods of doing things and more reliance perhaps on new methods might help us raise detection and conviction. And I would just like to get your perspective on that and tell us a little bit more about what you plan to do to improve detection and conviction rates.
Member, just to, through you, Chair, with respect to the requests for these statistics, if we may be given an opportunity to get those statistics unforwarded through the Chair. With respect to the second part of the question, things that we have, in fact, been doing with respect to increasing our detection rate include training, and in the context of homicide investigators especially, training officers in different interview techniques with respect to homicide investigations. And not only interview techniques, but using the technology to aid you with your interviews by way of the David Horn machines. The second limb is also where we have set up CIRU as a one-stop shop, where previously we would have had the armorer at one location and CIRU at the other location. CIRU traditionally would have done the DNA and fingerprint extractions, and the armorer would be in St. James. So where we seize a firearm, the firearm would have to first go to CIRU and then go to the armorer. A decision was made by the previous commissioner to create a one-stop shop where a firearm that is retrieved from any crime scene would go to CIRU. It would go through the forensics first, be it the DNA or fingerprinting, and then it would go through the hands of the armorer, who would then do the test firing, deliver those ballistics to the Forensic Science Center, at the same time issue the armorer's report to an investigator pursuant to his investigation. We have also been using, in a number of the homicide matters, CCTV footage where it is readily available, because we understand and appreciate that the network itself is not one that is robust enough to facilitate easy retrieval and access to CCTV footage. So we have been using CCTV footage in that regard. The other limb of it as well is ballistics, where we have been able to charge persons based on ballistic findings from the Forensic Science Center. Another limb we have been utilizing is the Interception of Communications Act, which has been a useful tool in helping us in collaboration with the Strategic Services Agency in solving a number of homicides that were high profile within recent times. So,
but would you want to answer Member Lachmedial's specific question as to the new methodology, if you will find that it will be making an impact? I think that's the tail piece of the question. Am I correct?
Well, yes. That's a lot of information. But what have you seen in terms of the impact specifically?
Right. So traditionally, and I'm speaking in the context of homicides or other serious crimes, we know that a challenge for us at this time is getting IC witnesses to come forward. So we as the organization, we have determined, look, we cannot rely on IC witnesses because of that fear factor that arises. That is why we have gone the way of using the forensics and the other bits of technology to support our investigations. So our investigations are no longer the normal, traditional, linear road that we would follow of trying to get witnesses to come forward. But also, now we are also relying on the forensics, the ballistics, and the other technology to assist us in gathering the evidence to bring charges against individuals.
So, Mr. Francis, I think we're singing from the same hymn book, because I say it, I think, ad nauseum, that the days of confessions and the days of eyewitness testimony are long gone, and we need to go the way of science. The question really is, what impact has it made in terms of your solve rate? Can you give us definitive numbers? Can you say we've increased our solve rate by X% with homicides or with robberies or sexual offenses? You know, and coming out of some of what you said, I must raise the question because, look, we depend by and large, and this is why we have these committee meetings, because we need to raise what we read in the newspaper because that's what affects the general public, right? The people that we are here to represent. And when you read in the newspaper about 3-month and 4-month delays in DNA analysis and those sort of things, it leaves the impression with the public, which you are open to correct now, that the availability of resources to really utilize the technology, whilst it may be available, the amount of resources available may not be sufficient to really make an impact in the solving of crimes. So if you could address that, and as I said, firstly, tell us, have you measured? Because to know if something is working, as they say, you have to be able to measure it, right? That's one of the targets. So have you been able to measure the impact of all that you've said there, all of these initiatives, on your solve rate?
Right, member. So that body of statistics will be made available through you, Chair, in a subsequent submission. With respect to the forensics and the availability of resources, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service recently got commissioned in excess of 15 police officers who are now ballistic examiners. So they have the ability now to generate reports that could assist with a quick turnaround of ballistic reports with the Forensic Science Center. We know in the past there was a small challenge with respect to getting that turnaround from ballistics, but with that injection of police officers, we will be seeing an increase in the number of hits that may be connected back to a number of homicides and other crimes involving firearms.
We do intend to meet on the 27th of February. So we would want to set, because this is very significant, because we would want to have the information, the data out there, and the empirical data out there, so that we can address, so when we address the public, we go with empirical data. So you have indicated that you would provide us with the data. We are telling you on that date, we do expect the Commissioner of Police to be here on the 27th, and you can bring that data. Member, let me go to Member Mitchell now with his questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I have a question, and I'm asking it on behalf of some of my stakeholders at the ministry. So we're returning to the area of Carnival and Carnival activities. Carnival, as we know, is a cultural experience. There are a number of cultural activities, and there is economic value to some of these activities. And the private sector, they get involved. They have their events in the form of fetes. We are world famous for the types of fetes we enjoy and we throw. Different types of fetes, all inclusive, cooler, all different types of events that we have. And it's a part of our cultural experience. The private sector, of course, they do it for profit, and profit is not a bad thing. It ensures sustainability. And, you know, people pay for this cultural experience, and there's an economic model that goes with these types of events. But there is a call that is becoming louder that the charge, the cost to host these events are escalating because the police complement the decision to place police at these events. It's arbitrary, and it is driving up the cost to these events. I have been to some of these events, and I can tell you, we see a number of police there on duty, but on the way to the event, you see a lot of police congregating and kind of liming in the outside, in the car parks, etc. And it does appear to me, the casual observer, that the complement that is decided upon to be put at these events is just way too much, driving up the cost of these events, and it may very well kill the future of these events. So what do you have to say about that and about the charge that the arbitrary decisions to place a lot of police officers, more than is necessary, is really just a contrived scheme for more and more police officers to earn extra duty? And what do you have to say about the decisions to provide the complements to different types of events?
Yes, sir. Only recently, I think about 2 weekends ago, we had a meeting with some of the Fed Promoters Association, I think it was. And of course, we have heard the sentiments echoed by the promoters. We have heard the statements, we have heard the accusations. And we are not going to bury our heads in the sand here. I've heard you comment, and you yourself, you have mentioned that you have seen police officers appear to be congregating and so on in perhaps the parking areas and so on. Now, when we detail our strength for an event, previously, and when I say previously, prior to this year, it was done based on not empirical evidence, but based on historical, and I would say remembrance, because it's not historical data, what people would have experienced, what officers would have experienced in their, so then anecdotal data, so to speak. And we have heard the utterances made by the promoters, and we have responded. We have created a policy document to guide our officers in deploying personnel to work at FETs and all of these and other events that may entail the need for police officers to be there. And we have found that the policy document, it's based on a number of variables that would impact how many officers are sent to an event. We look at historical data, yes. We look at activities that happen at different times. I say activities, untoward activities. We look at things like the amount of exit gates, the amount of bars. Where is it a FET where money is being collected? What about the promoter? What is the experience of the promoter? What about the ingress and egress routes in and around the area? So a number of these variables or factors, they are taken into consideration. What we have done, we have created a matrix that works, that is automated, so that and we are credit points to different to each variable. So let's say the variable is FET promoter experience. 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, and so on. You would get different points coming out of that. And then, of course, that, when you put all together, you would get how much police officers that should be sent to the venue. And we have found that that is working well. We have shared the policy document and the matrix with the promoters. And I realized that since that meeting 2 Saturdays ago, I haven't heard any comments. I'm not saying that there hasn't been, but I haven't heard any. But I think that it's something that we have moved into, and and according to the expressions by the promoters, they themselves were impressed. They saw the amount of time and effort that we placed into creating this document, and we have created a document in a way that it should stand perhaps the test of time. And we are hopeful that this perhaps would reduce the complaints, and perhaps why in the last couple weeks or so we have not been necessarily hearing the similar utterances expressed.
Okay, I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that there is a set procedure, and I look forward to the Promoters Association and anybody else who is involved in that industry to comment and perhaps settle on a set procedure to do it. Because, of course, where we sit, it is our policy to increase the economic value from the cultural sectors, the tourism sectors, and we really would not want to kill the industry because of these decisions that are made. We thought about, we're speaking about the car park, perhaps it could be augmented by an undertaking by the promoter to provide private security in the car parks, and you just have the core complement, the core strength of the police being involved in the more important areas, treating with the more critical things. So I'm very happy to hear that, and thank you for your answer.
Member Munilal.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon again to all colleagues and our visitors. I would just begin by taking up one point that Member Mitchell was dwelling on. And I have a series of very short questions for clarity, and then really one substantive issue to raise, if I'm permitted, Chairman. Thank you. Just to continue on that line of Member Mitchell raised, and I want to share that view, because as an elected person as well, it comes to our attention relationships between organizers of events, not only FET, but organizers of other events, and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in relation to the requirement of the TTPS to provide a complement of officers and so on at functions. I can tell you, the three of you, that at a recent event, I believe it was New Year's Day or so, a sporting event at a junction of a trace in my constituency involving children. The police had done an analysis and required a complement of officers that would have cost $10,000 for a charitable sports organization in a trace in my constituency. It was $10,000 for the police to provide that. I also take note, gentlemen, that when there's a protest at the parliament, the police come free. I don't think the protesters pay for the police to come. So maybe it is that we must call some of these activities a protest where the police attend free. But that is something I share the view of the other member that needs some type of revisiting to look at, whether there's a proper policy framework in place, what are the objectives of the groups, whether they be the promoters who play a major role at a time like this for economic value, cultural presentations and so on, or simple sporting events, village bazaar, and so on. It cannot be that we have a situation where there's an exorbitant amount of money to be paid for really non-profit activities, events, and so on. So I just want to share that experience and leave it there.
Member Munilal, before you go on, because what you don't want, because I just shared something with Member Mitchell. There was an event last year where the strength was 35 police officers in my constituency. This year, it is 70. Every Saturday behind the bridge, DCP at Piccadilly, I host an event and it's a free event hosted by myself and the former MP, and we have strength of over 4,000 or 5,000. It's free because for the constituents. We don't want the impression to be out there that the police are looking for areas to augment income. The impression may be wrong, but perception is important, and we really would want, and particularly piggybacking on both what Member Munilal has said, what Member Mitchell has said. It's part of one is part of the culture for economic activity. The other one is part of the constituency to build inter-constituency contact, which will in itself reduce crime, because when people are breaking bread together, they will not break bones. And let's try to see if you can work with it in a robust manner to keep that perception down and bring down the numbers now.
Yeah, may I respond shortly just to what you were saying?
Yes.
Perhaps it may also answer the member. Within the policy, there's an area for an appeal, and the appeal is to be made to the Assistant Commissioner for the area concerned. And phone numbers, it's an appeal that is not necessarily have to be done in writing, because phone numbers are shared.
Are shared. We have people who, it has been done, but need we reach that state? What I'm saying, before we get to that, let's see if we can keep it down. Time is of the essence, but let us see if we can work to keep it down, to build the community, to build the culture, and not have that perception of the police out there, and not stymie the industry. Member Munilal, let's move to the substantive.
One question. Is it possible that you can share with this committee, perhaps in writing, what during the Carnival period, it could be 2019, 2018, 2017, or even this year, what is the amount collected, the quantum of money collected through the charging private events, private event promoters? What is the quantum of money collected by the TTPS? Between January the 1st and Ash Wednesday. Okay. January the 1st to the Sunday after Ash Wednesday. For that period, what is the quantum of money collected and charged private promoters, including the NCC and their events?
Member Munilal, thank you. Prosecute your questions, please.
Having heard Member Mitchell, I now scratch off my next question.
Good, well done.
Which I was going to ask only for 2 years, 2020 and 2022. Carnival is upon us. If you can give a commitment to give us that type of data. And the purpose for what the funds are used for, not just the funds collected, but the purpose. So we can move on easily. But might I just add that I also, gentlemen, have some interest in the Ministry of Works and Transport. And a concern as well related to this is the efficiency with which the police act in terms of providing escorts for heavy truck and long lorries and so on. And that also has there's a concern as well there as to costing and the efficient distribution of resources to provide that type of support, but also the cost, which is again fed into an economic cost for transport, for materials, for construction. I just leave that there. I don't want to go further with that, but just to put it. Now, a couple small questions I promised. There was an issue earlier, and I think Mr. Francis had spoken about the larceny of vehicles, or was it Mr. Maraj? I think, Mr. Maraj, larceny of vehicles. If you could just undertake to give us some data from 2017 to 2022, 22 is closed now, as to the figures for larceny of vehicles. I would appreciate that. Now, the issue of CCTV camera was raised, I believe, by one of you. And could you indicate to us now the coverage of the CCTV cameras? Of course, we are not concerned with location and so on, but what percentage, how many cameras are operated by the TTPS, and what percentage of those cameras, or absolute numbers if you have, are currently functional? We are not interested in locality and location and what it's looking at and so on. How much are functional as of this time, if you can give us that information? You want to answer me immediately?
I can't. It's difficult to answer that immediately, but I can speak somewhat to my past experience, recent experience at Central Division, because I thought that the figure, it was alarming, and we had embarked on a process really to restore the camera feeds, because a lot of them, they were down at the time. I think it was up to about 20% of them were not working. And by the time I had left, we had only a few were restored. So I know that generally it is a problem, because it's affecting what it is we want to do, and it has actually impressed upon us to perhaps receive from the citizenry their willingness to sort of join with us. So right now, with your colleague, Mr. Ratiram, we are in talks with him, and up at Tunapuna, we are in talks there, where residents are interested in getting their CCTV coverage of their residences into the TTPS database, and that is something that we are working on right now. And I think that perhaps as we speak it here openly, we will be getting a lot more calls, for other persons to join.
But, and I want to move away from that quickly, but that would require some type of institutional and legal framework to operate. If you are going to work with private CCTV cameras, residential cameras, to assist you with crime fighting. What is the response of citizens to sharing critical video, and would that be admissible as well in the work that you do?
Right, so there are MOUs being written up in place because our legal department is involved in this process, and it's not that very technical legally, as you might as one might want to think, because I thought we may have encountered a number of legal issues, but it's not that technical legally, and.
Consent, unless you go and tap into it outside of that.
I'm concerned. Yeah, I'm just concerned with two things. There was over the years an issue concerning quality, and there's technical language to describe it as well. Admissibility based upon some type of technological bar that you have to satisfy when providing, when using it. Is that still the case, or we have gone beyond that in terms of the technology?
Well, so for the purpose that we are looking to pilot now, we are advising the residences and their representatives on the specs of the cameras and the DVRs that they are to use. So that is to avoid that issue that you are speaking of. This.
Okay, sure, fine. I want to move on now. So as you know, and we indicated earlier, a big concern of this committee, and I say regrettably, the commissioner found out yesterday, to her regret as well, that she would be unable to join us today. A big concern we have been sharing and investigating and examining is this issue of illegal guns and firearms, and indeed paraphernalia, uniform, cars, police, what appears to be police vehicles outfitted with emergency devices and so on, that found its way into the hands of criminal elements, whether they be authentic or not. But what appears to be to citizens police paraphernalia, vehicle, emergency devices and so on in the hands of persons who are up to no good, and including firearms and so on. Could you indicate to us, first, is this a big concern for you? I imagine it is. And what has been done within the recent past to come to terms and to come to grips with this very serious matter? Because you see, we have always been preaching that we must cooperate with the police, we must be of assistance, we must open our doors to the officers, and we reach a stage where you could open your doors to somebody looking like an officer, you can stop on the highway to what appears to be a police emergency vehicle, and you are then in the arms of the criminal element. So what new have been done? What new strategies have been undertaken to confront this really new dimension that we have seen, at least with newspaper reports? I have another question. Should I finish?
One more. Let Member Munilal pose the next question so that after the answer, we can move on to
the next question is a simple matter of fact issue, really. Again, we have been told, we have seen the images and so on. Could you confirm as of now whether the two mobile scanners in the possession of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, are they working, yes or no? And if they are not working, why are they not on the road doing what they were purchased? They were purchased to do, which is to identify illegal firearms and so on that will be on the roadway to and from to be part of criminal activity.
I'll take your second question first because it's very short. So they are not working. There are a number of technical issues that I'm informed affiliated with that equipment. So they are not working properly right now, and I think that efforts are being made to address that. And perhaps that is as much I can say about that right now, about those units. And perhaps, and going to your first question, please, sir. We are concerned, and that is the TTPS. The commissioner has voiced her concerns on this issue with items of police kit and even swivel lights, sirens being used by persons other than the police, and perhaps alluding or causing our residents to think that the police are the ones perpetuating crimes when persons are coming dressed as police officers. Internally, we have instructed that only our task forces throughout the nation are allowed to use certain type of kit, and that is the blue. So it's only our task force, and the charge room personnel, they will go revert to the blue and gray as we know it. The balaclava, that's that mask that came out during that COVID. A number of officers were holding on to it. But now we have instructed that be removed when persons are dealing directly with the public. So while some officers may be using, because there's still the COVID threat, the instructions are that they are not to use it when you are interacting with the public. With regards to other persons using our kit, we have looked at our legislation, which actually speaks against it. And I think perhaps other agencies, mostly security companies, perhaps would have been allowed to use items resembling police kit. And we are planning a meeting to start to address that issue. Because there would be some other legal issues within that. And we are planning a meeting with the different security companies to address that. We are also planning meetings with the Customs and Excise, because the swivel lights, sirens, those are things that are imported. And we are planning conversations with the Customs and Excise on those issues.
As you raise the issue, Mr. Simon, of legislation, yes, could you indicate to us whether or not it's a concern of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service recent moves to remove the Commissioner of Police as the sole authority on giving out firearms and extending the license for firearms?
Mr.
Is that a concern?
We will ask we remember Munilal, sometimes you...
But you took some time from me.
And it's an important question because the country needs to know. I am told that those 2 mobile devices that detect firearms, they cost the state expended over $25 million to purchase that. Is that so? No, it's not so. It's more than 25 million. And why isn't, I just do not understand. Why aren't they functioning? I mean, we are trying to pump resources into the police service to make you all more effective, more up to date as a government. And what's the solution?
Why you ask why they are not functioning? Yes, and I can only relay what I was told, that there are some technical issues with it. The terms of the cost, I'll have to go and check to see that exact cost, because while there was a cost for having the equipment, there's a cost for maintenance and all of that. So I'd have to, if we can furnish you with that on a later date, please.
Member Webster Roy, you go, because we will be here for a longer time until Ash Wednesday if we don't answer. These are serious issues. Member Webster Roy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, my questions will be around capacity building and institutional strengthening. There's a provision within the act that governs the TTPS Section 22, which gives authority to the commissioner to recruit into the various ranks of the service civilians who are specially skilled or specially trained, right? What I would like to know is how many times would this provision have been utilized to enhance capacity within the service? And I'm mostly looking at improved detection, investigation, and crime fighting. I know in the past, previous commissioners might have used it to bring persons in for the sporting ability. But I want to know how many times would that specific provision would have been used to bring in highly skilled individuals to help to build capacity within the service to improve crime detection, investigation, and solving crimes.
Ma'am, that provision is being used constantly.
Okay.
Because in terms of administration, we have a very large unsworn contingent within the TTPS. As far as it relates to investigations, there are a number of persons brought in to be analysts in this service. In fact, only recently there was a meeting with all of these analysts because we are trying to unite all on one platform to get more effectiveness and efficiency out of them.
Before you continue, could you identify the various skill areas that you would have specifically recruited for? So you said analysts, what else?
Ma'am, there's analysts, there are persons who are also there for investigations. And whilst it may not harp around the criminal investigations, there are the other type of investigations that we do within the service. So you find that the civilian personnel are brought in for that. There are civilian personnel, unsworn personnel, we call them, brought into our legal department, so we are advised on a number of different legal components through their skill sets, ma'am.
In the last 2 years, approximately how many persons would have been brought on using the specific provision and for specified skills? So for example, you said analysts or persons maybe, did you bring on persons who are criminologists? Did you bring on forensic psychologists?
Ma'am, can I bring those figures for you on the next meeting?
In writing?
Yes.
Or the next meeting? Great, thank you so much.
On the 27th.
27th, yes.
Yes, I have another question, may I? Okay. Do you have a current strategic plan within the TTPS?
Yes, ma'am, we have a current strategic plan, 2022 to 24. And that is the strategic plan that we are operating with right now. And we are actually here speaking from that plan.
That current plan, okay.
Yes.
So based on your current strategic plan, can you describe the approach for capacity building at all levels of the service and the anticipated results?
Right. And ma'am, and that's why I was able to tell you that that provision that you mentioned is in use because that is where we are employing unsworn. In terms of capacity building, we are making proper use of training. We are taking training from, not just from the police training academy, but right up to the executive level. So there's ongoing training in the TTPS. And we are collaborating a lot with the Canadians, the UK, and the Americans in particular. There are a number of persons going for training on the outside. Countries such as El Salvador have seen the TTPS there. In fact, this week, there's a few of us returned from El Salvador. We have officers in the States, in America, and as I said, there are continuous training, continuous training processes ongoing within the TTPS. The training academy there's always training going on there. Yes.
So based on the fact that you have consistent ongoing training, recently I was looking at a program. It's a TV show, Law and Order, right? And they were trying to deal specifically with rogue police officers, and they were encountering this problem called the Brotherhood, where there's a group of officers sworn to a code of secrecy. In Trinidad and Tobago, how are you, in terms of training, how are you preparing officers to treat with rogue elements within the service? What specific type of training have you sent people abroad for training so that they deal with the rogue elements within the service? And I'm asking this question based on the fact that we are seeing recent reports where police paraphernalia is used for crime. You're hearing where ammunition found at crime scene. So what specific training, if any, was done to prepare officers to investigate themselves and to help to treat with the rogue elements within the service?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Ma'am, as you may be aware, just as you are seeing situations where there are allegations against police officers, you are also seeing situations where police officers are being charged and placed before the court. In the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have a designated unit, the Professional Standards Bureau, which actually deals with these types of investigations, and they are a trained bunch. And they too experience the training that is ongoing. Now, With regards to the paraphernalia, it's not always these things that end up on crime scenes would be left by a police officer. And that is why we are taking steps to have our kit better, have our kit, put our kit in a better position where we are able to identify it and to actually monitor. So we are talking things like radio frequency identification to use this sort of technology, associated with our kit, so that we would be able to monitor our items in a much better way. So you find that, as the commissioner is saying, it's a service that is adapting, and it's one of the features of our strategy, of the strategy in going forward, to be an adaptable service that we can respond to the operational and tactical issues that come from within and outside of the service. And this is just one of the items, again, that we are looking at and trying our best to respond to.
Chairman, may I? Okay. In terms of, again, focusing on capacity building and so on, is there any sharing of expertise with international agencies? So do you partner with other police force to learn from them? How often is that done? Can you provide me any evidence of the training or the partnership bearing fruit in Trinidad and Tobago?
Yes, member. So with respect to the fruits of the training, that can be provided by way of statistics. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has ongoing partnerships over the years with the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, where we have officers going across to their training academy to receive that 3-month course of training. We have officers who also have been receiving training from the RCMP, from the German Federal Police, and also from the French police. We also have police officers who retrieve training from Red Track. So we do have that ongoing relationship with a lot of international law enforcement agencies, to also include the United Kingdom through the NCA. So we do have officers who at times go to those locations, see what are the best practices that are being adopted, and then tweak those best practices for use in Trinidad and Tobago, because we cannot wholly and solely adopt those practices in Trinidad and Tobago because of our unique culture and environment. So those relationships have been in existence for years and are ongoing at this time. Yes, I can speak to, there was a firearm seizure in April 2022 at the Swissport Bond, and because of that exchange of training and expertise between officers from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and agents from the Homeland Security Investigations and the ATF, we were able, through that joint partnership and that training, to have persons charged, indicted in the US with respect to that importation of firearms that came into Trinidad and Tobago. So that is one live example of where that training and exchange of expertise bore fruit.
Member Webster, Roy, you go right ahead. You go right ahead.
Promised final, and it's a comment basically, and it's in reference to what Dr. Member Munilals would have said about the community activity with the police extra duty, as well as my colleague Member Mitchell. I strongly believe that there's a need to build community relationships. So when we have activities that's not for profit, small sporting events, small community events, I think that is an opportunity for the police, instead of charging to provide strength, use as an opportunity to build relationship with the community by being present, interacting with the civilians, building that community spirit, so that when there's a call for persons to report crime, you already have that relationship established. So just take that into consideration, please. Thanks.
That note, and Member Webster, I am so glad that you took the opportunity to go into extra time, because that's a serious consideration and a serious issue raised. What we'll do, I will just ask the members for the next occasion, the 27th of February, barring any unforeseen. Member Mitchell, we will just ask for answers. We'll pose certain questions, and we'd like you to provide the answers in writing. Member Mitchell?
Yes, I would like you to prepare for us an update on a number of the areas in which you spoke about, Mr. Maraj, of operationalization, on pepper spray, on your use of force policy, and the training, etc., for the use of pepper spray and tasers and those types of weapons. But generally, operationalization on all the matters that you've recently received, that have recently received legislated clothing.
Member Richards.
I will reserve my questions, Chairman, for when the commissioner comes before us.
You will take her by surprise.
I don't want to take her by surprise. I just want...
You will be current.
Yes.
For writing responses. Right.
Sorry, a report on the procurement of the 2 mobile scanners, when they arrived into the country, the exact cost, the amount expended to date on maintenance of those scanners, if they have been functional, for how long, and if they were ever functional, for how long they have now been non-functioning, as DCP Simon has indicated, as well as if you can say in writing whether or not there's any consideration being given to the development of a policy to deal with standardization and modernization of uniforms for police officers, because I read it ever so often from persons who comment on matters of national security. So I would like to know. I would also like to find out what sort of, based on our last meeting, what sort of collaborative relationship exists between the TTPS and customs, because on the last occasion we heard about non-functioning scanners on the port, and my position is that I'm very concerned that TTPS is inheriting a problem when the guns arrive here and are distributed, and then you have to find a way to get them. So if we can nip it in the bud at the arrival stage, I just want to know how much collaboration is there between the TTPS and customs in treating with the issues of guns entering through the legal and illegal, well, I guess the illegal ports would be Coast Guard, but let's deal with legal ports of entry for now, and what recommendations you may have or suggestions you may have for improving those relationships.
Member Munilal, anything do you require in writing?
Yes, just to reiterate the issue of the larceny of vehicles, the data, 2017 to 2022, an appreciation of the CCTV coverage at this time nationally, Trinidad and Tobago, not just one division as the case may be, the status of that. And I think that's also I don't know if Member Mitchell had raised the issue, the funding, the monies raised by the TTPS during the Carnival period, and outside of that, the quantum of money raised and the purpose for which that money is used.
Member Richards, you had
I just have a question based on one of the questions asked for in writing by Senator Lakshmi Dayal, and just to get some guidance on the legal advice regarding the use of portable scanners without the knowledge of the citizenry.
Right. We would want you to give something in writing relative to the legal advice that was received relative to the use of portable scanners on the citizenry without
their knowledge or
without
consent.
their knowledge. If that is needed, if it's required, you tell us
Or
what
if
the
it's not
advice
required,
is.
yeah.
Now, and finally, we would want to ask, I want to ask in writing for an expansion on the question relative to the synergies, the collaboration between the TTPS and other state agencies. We'd want that answer in writing. Now, in closing, let us thank you all sincerely for attending. Let us commit to the 27th, that's a Monday, barring anything else if we have the House or the Senate, that being. Other than that, we are all here and we'll be ready to have... And the commissioner, well, we, yourself, and the commissioner of police to attend to the country. And on that occasion, it may be sagacious to bring a report, if you can, as to the carnival and the reports on what happened, what were the statistics. That will be something that will be current, and we want to ask you that, so you are prepared to bring us a report. Members, the public hearing is now adjourned. I want to thank DCP Intelligence and Investigation, Mr. Kurt Simon, for attending today. I want to thank ACP Criminal Division, Mr. Winston Mirage, for attending today. I want to thank Senior Superintendent Kerwin Francis for attending today. And I want to thank in advance the Commissioner of Police designate for attending on the 27th. I expect to see you all back on the 27th. Be safe, and thank you for attending. This meeting, the public part of this meeting is now adjourned. Not the private part. Yes, interact with them. Oh.